Well, on Time Tunnel, I noticed that the song you at least are calling your single is "It's Not Right."
Right.
One that it's got a very sort of I think I call it sort of a contemporary garage rock or punk rock sound to it.
Cool. It's exactly where we'd hoped it would be. We've had many. Let me not say many yet. Several very good reviews. But we had one that was just sort of mediocre, and they said, it's a jangly garage band singing about boys and girls. Well, there isn't one tune on here that's just that. And maybe they needed to listen to it more than once to get it. You certainly could get that this guitarist here was trying to steal his best friend's girlfriend, which isn't the coolest thing in the world to do. But it's basically a tongue-in-cheek thing about kind of knowing what's right and what's wrong, and what is right and what's wrong, and all of that. And that's a little deeper than, let me put it this way, we wouldn't have done some of this back in the 60s. We were teenagers, and it was the straight-ahead stuff, you know?
It was Hey Baby.
It was Hey Baby. And today, from where we are, we have a little more life experience. Some of it good, some of it bad, but you learn from all of it. And it had to work its way in here, I think. So it was a very novel experience for us, not trying to write, because it came very easily, music like we did before, but the lyrics were a whole new can of worms.
To really work on it. Now, let's talk a little bit about that, because you are a unique band, and you may, as far as I know, be the first rock band who ever had a lyricist who was sort of the sixth member of the group, who wasn't actually, you know, either the vocalist might be the lyricist in other bands, or just the guitar player might write the song and the lyric.
Right.
But the Fifth Estate actually had a guy, Don Askew, who was part of the band but wasn't actually in the 5 members. He was a 6th member who wrote your lyrics.
He wasn't a playing member on stage.
Or contributed to help you with the lyrics or something.
He was an idea man. We looked at ourselves as musicians.
Yeah.
Don looked at himself as a reader. I don't want to say intellectual. He wouldn't agree with that, but he knew stuff that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
And he also lived in New York and got us into the Village, and kind of got us plugged in. We were looked at as a bunch of really young guys in a band in the Village. Almost all the other bands that were down there at the time were older than we were.
Oh.
And so we were kind of looked at as like the kids from the suburbs. But Don plugged us in enough so that we weren't the totally simplistic, ignorant kids from the suburbs, although we really were, you know.
Now, was he older than you guys, or was he just a little more hip or something?
He was just a reader of we all read.
He's almost like part of what you might call a beat type guy.
He was definitely that.
Yeah,
definitely that. I mean, you know, all of that, all of the poetry, the Naked Lunch, the whole thing, you know.
So, but you know, later on, different rock groups did that. Keith Reed famously did it with Procol Harum. White as Shade of Pale was the pure lyricist, and then you know, the Beach Boys, of course, tried it with various people. With Brian Wilson worked. Well, I just thought it was very interesting.
Let me just say that this wasn't a premeditated or planned thing. Yeah. It just happened.
It was natural, huh?
And probably because the rest of us, not that we couldn't write lyrics.
Yeah.
We were just too busy having fun and doing other stuff. We were musicians,
you were playing.
We were players and singers. And so we started realizing that Ricky and I wrote some things together.
Yep.
And
back in the
right
D-Man,
then,
Fifth Estate era.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we were more than capable of doing that, but Don kind of came up with things that were kind of cool. Plus, he had more time to spend, kind of like we do over the internet now, with all the messages back and forth. He had more time to spend with Wayne on that to coordinate those things. So that was a function that really let us maybe rehearse more, and then have to worry about sitting there writing a piece. It was already written. This is it, you know.
You guys could play.
Yeah.
Now, what was it? You mentioned like playing in Greenwich Village. Now, what were some of the type of places you might have played back in the mid-60s?
We played all the clubs down there. I mean,
for those of us from Boston who maybe Trudy Heller's was one name.
Well, Trudy Heller's was a kind of Midtown, I think. It wasn't really
wasn't
uptown.
Okay,
Ondine's was uptown, and we were at all these. We played at Trudy Heller's a lot. I'll get back to Greenwich Village in a second, because there's a whole different scene.
Oh, okay, this would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah, a whole different scene. Trudy Heller's really was a dinner club that actors and actresses had come into from the theater district at some point. It was run by Trudy, who was gay, and it was quite a show in there with Roger, the 7-foot-tall black transvestite who was one of the go-go girls, and you know, this was when things were starting to be realized, and coming, you know, coming to fruition here, and it was a place that was interesting. It was a place you went into, you could hear music, you could hear soul music. We alternated with a soul band every other set. And basically, it's where people came to see people if they thought they would want them on a New York TV show. It's where they came to see us before we got on Hullabaloo, which was pretty cool. And they saw us play, and they said that works, and we did it.
So it was almost a place to audition for even more than that.
Even more than that,
so
right.
It was important.
So that was Trudy Heller's. And then back down in the Village, that was a whole other thing now, because, again, we didn't premeditate any of this. We kind of were what we were. But when we got down into the Village, we were like bracketed by two types of bands. There was, let me put it this way, there was probably on one side, there were lots of bands, but I would say, just trying to think who'd be a good example.
I'm stuck in the time tunnel as you're thinking about that. You have 4.5 minutes, and then I'm going to come on, and we're all going to wrap up with a 5-minute telephone conversation with Frank Delestrito.
Okay.
Who ends our show every week.
Very good.
We've got 4 minutes.
Okay. Probably on one side of us would have been the Village Fugs. I don't know if you remember who they are.
They were beat.
Very beat.
Poet, weird, strange, yeah.
Strange.
Acoustic.
Totally uncommercial, and they could care less.
They didn't want to be commercial.
And they didn't want to be commercial. On the other side was, God, I should remember the name of this band, The Byrds.
Well, yeah,
okay.
There you go. That's pretty big.
And we played shows with the Byrds at Village Gate. We opened for them, and they were fairly well known already at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.